Before I go off to my yoga this morning, I was going to just share an observation that came to me yesterday, explore it, and I wanted to just invite you to notice and see if it's relevant to you or not. I think in the last few years I've noticed that I'm quite a competitive person. I think when I was doing this, kind of came about from doing marathons a little bit. I noticed, that I had more desire to be successful in these than I'd actually probably previously been aware. So this desire from competitiveness has also caused a lot of frustration, and I think probably this is where there's something that's worth sharing, or wanted to share, is that my competitive nature isn't necessarily with other people. I mean, I think as satellites around me and what I want to achieve, there is parts of it, but actually the biggest competitor I have is myself, which now when I say it out loud sounds really trite and kind of obvious and a bit cliched. But let me explain it, is that I know what I achieve within a day or a week or a month, and I know what I want to be able to achieve in that same time frame. And I would say, constantly competing with what I am doing to what I want to be doing. Then the want it's the same thing, just more of the same thing, or particular goals and particular projects. I am always, if outside of work, I'm always competing or trying to balance out myself between being competitive over what I want to have happen over what is happening, and it's that tussle, and it's quite for me it's quite a daily tussle, a daily argument to accept where I am is where I am, and it's not able to achieve all the things I want to on a daily basis, but my belief is that I'm getting there incrementally, and it's that is which I find my deepest challenge is my competitive nature on myself, between what I know what I want to do and what I am doing. And it's not just the knowing what I want to be doing, it's actually that those other things are also very important to the success that I'm driving toward, and trying to engineer to happen. So it's not they are just kind of like whimsical ideas, but also it's a competitive nature in just getting other things in my life to balance out too, having some harmony there. So I get competitive with myself or upset with myself when I'm not kind of doing the workouts I want to, if I'm not running as much as I want to, if I'm not going out and doing getting physically fit as I'd like to be, and work is taking over from that, and that is a wrangle. That's where I'm getting my biggest frustration, is this competitive nature of where I am to where I want to be. Being aware of that and labeling it is actually quite useful, because I can then acknowledge it. I can say, yes, okay, I understand that it's competitiveness that's driving this frustration. I can understand that actually, whilst I'm doing as much as I can, maybe I could do a little bit more, but I know that it's different from where I want to be, where I attain for my time and what my goals are. And by acknowledging it, by labeling it, by giving, okay, I understand what it is, I can acknowledge that. So the awareness starts, the acceptance starts as well, and I have therefore a better conversation with myself, a better negotiation with myself as I begin to navigate a day or a week where certain goals are set and certain goals aren't met, and that is really useful. Once I can label something, so I can actually have a conversation with it, it becomes easier to manage, rather than this amorphic, general emotional sense of frustration, which is a little bit difficult to pin down and it's a bit general. I can say, well, I know it's competitiveness, I know I'm actually beating myself up with what I want to achieve. When I get to that awareness, I'm easier to accept it, and when I'm easier to accept it, I can breathe a little bit and go, okay, well, it's just my competitive nature driving me to where I want to be. breaking that down for a moment. I'm taking it from a label of understanding what it is, acknowledgement of what it is, but importantly, I've transformed it. I don't know if you've noticed that. But what I did was change it from something called frustration, which is maybe has a connotation of negative or unuseful feelings towards it, to one that is more positive. Because out of the two, if I'm saying I'm frustrated, that brings with it a set of emotions and feelings. If I say I'm being competitive, well, that has a connotation of someone who wants to strive, who has some positive intention behind what they're after and what they want to achieve. We've just maneuvered the meaning of the feeling to something else, which then is more positive, more supportive, and ultimately one that we can have a conversation with. It's hard to have a conversation with frustration. It's easier to navigate through competitiveness. And it's a very subtle technique of language, but once we kind of label things in a more useful, more positive way, we begin to create solutions, begin to have conversations, negotiations about how we manage this better. So from this starting out point about competitiveness, what I can give you is notice what's the positive intention behind that feeling you're having. Take some time to investigate with a question that you can repeat in your mind. What's my intention behind this feeling? You might be surprised with what comes back. Take the first word, take the first sentence that comes to your mind, and just explore that and understand if that's true for you. It was certainly true for me when I began saying the word competitive. And when I changed it from frustration or feeling like I wasn't achieving things and getting all kind of wrapped up in that stalemate of thinking, that recycling thinking that I talk about a lot, and turned it into competitiveness, well, I can respect competitiveness when it's not directed against other people and it's just internally. I can respect that, I can do something with it. So, if anything at all, notice the things that you're doing that are giving you some challenging emotions, challenging feelings. And in the same way that I've done for myself, ask yourself, what's my intention here? What is actually going on? What label could I give this other than the frustration? What kind of meaning could this have? And I invite you to consider that this would be a way to navigate through these feelings, get to some understanding, get you to that point that I do often talk about the awareness, the acknowledgement, and the acceptance of how things are, just so that you begin to take yourself out of that place into one that's more useful, where you're you're actioning things that you want to, and you're improving the quality of your day and ideally quality of your life as well. I'll leave you for today with that thought. What could you do to understand the intention behind your emotions? What questions could you ask? Create a label that's more positive, possibly, given the example I gave you. From that, awareness becomes acknowledgement, and from acknowledgement, acceptance. That in itself gives you the leverage you need to make the difference you want to, or take some action, or take you out of where you are. It's when we fight these things where our challenges can occur.